Hello, Kendra. How you doing?
Hey, Mariko, I
Mhm.
am doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. This is episode 13 of the strategy session. It almost feels like an entire television season. And I'm so glad that we got into this and we collaborated on this project. And we're going to have a fantastic conversation that is going to share with our audience, with our group, and our followers as to what's really transpired in the last 13 episodes. We've been going bi weekly, and things have been moving fast for us. A lot of great growth, great development. And I think this was a well orchestrated subject matter. But before we get
Mhm.
into that, I wanna. I'm curious. I know I was asking you off the air, but you just came from uh, a vacation. You unplugged and had a little bit of a break, and it was actually one of the subject matters on one of my other shows last week. We were talking about unplugging and how important it is. Tell me a little bit. Do you feel refreshed? Do you feel ready to roll up your sleeves and
Well,
have? Yeah, go ahead.
I do feel refreshed as far as like getting some new ideas, some new energy. However, my energy got knocked down a little bit when I got back and I got hit with a horrible cold, as you can probably hear in my voice a little bit. So, other than struggling with that, that time on the cruise ship just was nice and refreshing. And I did even have a chance during a little bit of downtime happened to be when you went live on the last session. So I got to join for just a minute on that. I'll be honest, I didn't listen to the whole thing on the cruise. There were other things to do. So I joined for a minute, typed in some comments, went and did my thing around the cruise ship. And then just the other night, I listened to the replay, and that was a really interesting session that you did. I was not aware of like the deep fakes you guys were talking about. I knew it happened with celebrities and trying to advertise products, but I didn't realize all the other avenues that people were using to recreate someone else's AI image to fake people out. So
Yeah.
that one is definitely worth going back to listen to if you haven't heard that episode already.
Yeah, that was a great episode, and I had Paige on in a previous stream, and I felt there was a great opportunity to bring back the conversation in a marketing lens because we don't realize half the time some of what's going on, and that's just a variety of reasons. Are we busy? Are we just oblivious because we're so dialed into what we're doing, and we're so passionate about bringing value to our customers with what we are experts in that we kind of forget, hey, there are scams going on, and everyone should be maybe not in high alert but aware. And
Definitely want to
and,
be aware of that. Yeah.
and last week's episode brought that level of awareness. So and truth be told, if I was on a cruise or on a vacation, you gave us a minute of your time, I don't know that if I would do the same. I'm going to be a little selfish here, but
Oh,
I will admit I'm humbled that you did it. Grateful that you jumped in. That just tells me that you have continued passion for this project that you and I are part of. So that's fantastic. Uh, Daniel's joining us from a toasty 98 degree Boston. Yes, it is extremely hot in the east, and I can't wait for either some rains to cool it down. Like it's windy. Yesterday was a dry wind, but it was like a desert wind.
mhm.
I haven't even left the house today because it is equally hot and disgusting. All
Yeah,
right.
sounds like we have similar weather happening here as well.
So let's jump in. We have a conversation that you and I have
Mm.
spoken. I've spoken with other members of my community, and hey, busy. We seem to be busy doing a lot of great things, and some of those things that we're doing are busy and bringing growth. Others are bringing value, but you start to question, and I know I started to question myself. Is there a point where everything that you're doing feels like you're getting nowhere? And I'll use the example. Um, Maybe I'm ballparking it. Around the end of the year, I decided that it was time to kind of wean off the bi-weekly newsletters. I started full guns a blazing, weekly newsletters, and it's like, wow, this is a lot of work. And uh, it seems like by the time I finish my draft and I'm ready to post, I got to start working on another draft, and I got other things that I want to get to, right? So
Mhm.
I kind of backed off and went bi-weekly, and then my calendar started to fill up with events, and clients want to hear from you, and then you got other projects, and and once again it's like, all right, something's got to shift, something's got to give. And I went to monthly, and I felt that by stepping back, I didn't really change anything, and perhaps my audience and my community were more appreciative than anything. It's like, all right, Americo no longer sounds or feels spammy. He's, right? He's now bringing value at a good pace. And uh, from time to time, we got to consider that. And you just recently threw new things into your mix. You're now hosting your own podcast. Talk a little bit about that. Share that with the community.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I was really happy to have your help in launching that and getting my stage ready. But the Business Boom podcast, it is happening weekly. Now, a lot of people kind of confuse that because they only see the lives happening bi-weekly on LinkedIn. But I do a recording on those off weeks where I'm not live with a guest. That's just me. I'm calling them a short and sweet episode. So those are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can listen to them, they're audio only. But that project, like I kind of mentioned to you, that it has been quite a bit more work than I anticipated. And I love bringing the value, and I really believe in what I'm doing there. But the workload, that's kind of the fine line that we have to walk, right?
Yep.
Because we still have to deliver value to our clients, but we're out there delivering content and value for people that we're trying to grow our know, like, and trust factor with as well. So it is a balance for sure.
Yeah. So the balancing act is, for some, it's what keeps them going. They need, it's a hit of dopamine. Staying busy keeps them going. But you reach a point where uh, keeping busy, you're just spinning your wheels, and nothing's happening. And I created a poll that kind of led up to this conversation, and I was fascinated with where some of the results uh, ended. So the question was around, at the present time, how do you feel things are going for you? Do you feel like you're making real progress? You feel like you're just busy doing a lot and nothing's really getting done? And well, as of this morning, and I know it's dropped since I've created this slide, it's dropped down to 39% um, of respondents said, I'm making real progress. So I'm happy to see that the number's that high, that there's a good amount of respondents and participants who are happy with where they are, happy with the progress they're making. But then there's the other, let's say 60% cumulative respondents who feel, 24% of them, that's a quarter of all respondents, feel like they're just busy doing a lot. And that's not a good place to be when
Mhm.
you feel busy. And at the end of the day, you're scratching your head wondering, wow, I feel like I accomplished nothing today. Right?
Yeah,
And
we
that's a
we all get
horrible
the
feeling.
same. Mhm, we all get the same 24 hours, right? But
uh,
sometimes it's like, I was busy all day and I just don't have enough to show for it. So that's definitely not where we wanna be.
right? And then you had 18% of respondents s- suggest that, hey, I'm productive. Now, productive is a difficult word to digest and define, because you can be productive but also ineffective. You feel like you've accomplished a lot, And then when you put pen to paper and you start adding things up, it's like, all right, my productivity brought zero in return, right? So you really got to look at your productivity and your
Mhm.
ROI. And if you're not, there's no return on investment, then yeah, it's all for naught.
Yeah.
And then there's the busy bees who, reacting to everything. You feel like you're putting out fires. You might as well wake up in the morning, put on your overalls, your firefighter's hat, because you're going to be putting out fires all day, and that's also not a good place to be, right? Many of us, we've pivoted intentionally. Some of us perhaps unintentionally, but we've transitioned from either corporate or we just started as entrepreneurs. And there are going to be times, hey, there's ups and downs, there's ebbs and flows, and we're going to feel at some point any one of these,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Sherilyn just commented and she said, "Why can't we just add more hours to the day?" Like, wouldn't that be nice? Some of us would love that, some of us would hate that.
Yeah, but some of those hours you want to add, you also want them to be restful hours, right? You don't
Mhm.
want to add hours to continue being busy. Like
Right.
my intention is not to work 16-hour days every day, 7 days a week.
Mhm.
Although, there's an understanding which some people get, some people just don't understand. But when you're self-employed, it doesn't mean that you're laying on the beach and the money's going to be rolling in while you're sipping back margaritas. You got to
Yeah.
be able and willing to roll up your sleeves. But when you're doing that, you want to be effective. You want to be productive. And you know what? It's a great conversation. You and I have spoken about, hey, what's next in terms of growth? What's next in terms of our journey? And a good friend of ours, Shelly, who co-hosts other events with me, she brought some great awareness and attention. Say, you know what? You talk about our growth. You talk about what we're doing with intention. There's a lot of free content that we're putting out.
Mhm.
And personally, I got content that's starting to pile up that I'd like to repurpose, but just you run out of time. You can't go back and repurpose something. So those were indicators for me that, hey, you know what? I'm starting to feel some momentum. People are starting to reach out to me and say, hey, I feel your energy. I feel the vibe. How can I be part of this? Now, you also want to be able to remind people we're running businesses here. We're not
Mhm.
doing this for the sheer entertainment of our communities. Uh, where do we go from here? And the growth equation, when I started thinking about it, it's like, all right, is what I'm doing intentional? Absolutely. Is what I'm doing measurable and showing me progression? Absolutely. So the fact that I needed to whittle back on my newsletter is indication and indicators of growth, right? I don't want to compromise time with my customers. So instead, I got to wean back on time that I'm spending on other areas of my business. Is marketing important? Absolutely. But is there a smarter way to approach it? I think there is.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts?
Um, well, there's quite a bit I'm thinking about there. I was doing some research leading up to this episode, so Um, my way of researching is listening to podcasts, so forgive me for that. But, listen to this episode with Mel Robbins, and she was talking about how you have to be strategic with what deserves your time. That really resonated. There's a lot of great things that we can pour ourselves into, but are they all gonna, like you said, return some value to us? So there's that. Then there's also, like, when you get to that point where you feel like you're going to need to start charging some people for some of the value that you're adding. You shouldn't be charging people unless what you're giving them is excellent. So sometimes the content that we've been working on, the things that have been leading up to this point, are kind of like practice
Hmm.
in a way. to where you get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm at that level now where there's going to be a paid gate to get to some of this content, but I've had enough practice doing like these live episodes. For me, I do a lunch and learn for my local folks here too. There's a lot of things, and just writing content too, right? Like you said, your newsletters, your emails, that kind of thing. You get better and better at it because you don't want to ask people to pay for something and it's just garbage. So,
Yeah. And listen, I'm one of the first to step up, and I'm perfectly fine with testing different things because I know there's a lot of people out there who are wondering. It's like, if I test this, what am I going to look like? Is it going to align with what I'm trying to build here? And I'm one of those individuals that I understand. Hey, here's an opportunity. I will test something for you. And if you've noticed the last couple of episodes and the last couple of lives, well, this past weekend, I conducted a few tests online. It was like 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning for me. So I wanted a smaller audience, but I was dabbling in social audio only. So I had set up a studio, a test studio. I was off camera for one, exclusively off camera. And really, I'm trying to respond to a lot of the noise that I still hear 6 months after. It's like, man, I really miss those audio rooms. It's like, all right, there an
mhm,
opportunity for us to mirror and replicate those audio room experiences for people. And I tested that this weekend, and there is a way of doing it. And I I want to be able to demonstrate that to people so that when they're ready, or whether it's like, hey, you know what? I'd love to do some more social selling. I'd love to blend into my content strategy a live stream where I can lean into the replays and let the replays kind of start to work into the community, and the replays start to work for me as a digital asset of some kind. uh,
mhm,
and but I'm just not ready to do it on camera, or I don't know that I feel comfortable doing it even with a talking thumbnail. So all right, so I did the audio only. So now I'm testing, and I'm comfortable testing, and I understand that, hey, my my feed might take a hit because it might not be all the things that people were looking for, but I'm okay being that person because it's driving value for those who are trying to build their business. And it kind of goes with my territory. Uh, and let me tell you, it was fun. There are people up at all hours of the night, and people joined the conversation. Some are really applauding. Hey, keep doing what you're doing. I love watching your journey and watching you test different things that other people aren't prepared to do. So, uh, but to your point, you talked about when do you let go because the value you're bringing either no longer drives the return on the investment that you were hoping for. And how do you recognize, what are some of the signs that we should be looking out for, that it's time to step back, or what we're doing is no longer sustainable,
mhm.
right?
Yeah,
What are some
that
of those
is
signs
the
for you?
fine line. You know, that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out. I'm learning right along as we're talking here. So, um, I mean, that's one of the reasons I brought it up as a subject matter because
Mhm.
it's definitely on top of mind. I had a partner with the Lunch and Learns who kind of, we tried a few ways to monetize it. I think that was on a slide that you have here coming up talking about monetizing. So we tried a few ways to monetize it, didn't really work out. I decided to keep moving forward with it, and she was like, I think I'm done doing this right now because it's taking away the time that I need to be putting into my business. So there are definitely signs. Sometimes you try some sort of monetization. If it doesn't work, I guess you have to ask yourself, is it worth continuing um, just add the value with not trying to necessarily monetize the content itself. Maybe
Mhm.
you're just monetizing by growing that know, like, and trust factor.
Yeah, and being known, being liked, being trusted comes in a variety of ways, but it also comes in uh, smaller bite-sized pieces. I remember when I first started this LinkedIn journey and made the decision to go all in, and grow, and create a business, and grow it. I was on here more times than I care to share. And people's like, dude, I can't pick up my phone without seeing your face. Like, it's like, all right, so what I'm doing is working. And that was intentional at the time. It was about raising awareness, just getting in front of my audience. And despite what the gurus were saying, you don't want to be here 3 to 4 times a day, but I was here 3, 4 times a day. I was here in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening, and it got to the point where I was getting into people's feed, and my community was growing. But I realized that had a lifespan and a shelf life before people started to envision how spammy me showing up 4 times a day would be, right? Like I'm nowhere in the Gary V type of stature, right? Gary V can show up 20 times a day and people will consume his content. But if Americo showed up 5 times a day, it's like, all right, give it a rest, Americo. Back off. We get that you're passionate about what you're talking about. We get that you're trying to grow, but it's time to kind of whittle it back. And I learned that with my newsletter. I'm now learning that with my live events. You don't realize how much work it is to produce a show
Mhm.
until you start producing a show, right?
That is so
Uh,
true. Yeah. I didn't realize how much work was going into it until I kinda launched the Business Boom project, and then I was like, "Whoa, there is a lot going up to the lead up and the behind the stages kinda thing."
yeah,
Yeah.
and I reached a point where I understood that, hey, your shows should not compete with your contents, and I had that epiphany, and I'm surprised it took me as long as it did. My content was competing with my live streams, and it was difficult to come up with content and a show. So I kind of refined things, and all my content is now either supporting and leading up and raising awareness to the main event, and then the post event lessons learned and all that UGC stuff that people kind of help you out with, which is great. Uh, Now the question comes, at least for myself, is is what I'm doing still a little much? And I think I'm at that point because I don't want to burn out, and I don't want to
Mhm.
burn out my audience, nor do I want to burn myself out. I don't
Yeah.
want people to feel compelled. Oh, Miracle's live again. Let me jump on, uh, you know, and support. And I I think this is a great conversation, and I think people who are listening are starting to maybe piece together that we're in the middle of a transformation, in the middle of a transition. It's no different than the advice we give our clients. All right, here's something you may want to consider pulling back on. We are at that intersection where we loved what we were doing and we continue to love what we're doing. And in order to continue loving these shows, we may want to consider kind of peeling it back for avoid ourselves from burning out, but also avoiding our community from feeling saturated and feeling like they're getting burnt out trying to support and show up. Because the idea
Mhm.
is to bring new viewers to these shows. And I know there's a
Yeah.
lot of great people supporting us week in and week out, and I love you guys to bits. Um, but I think from a mental health, a clarity perspective, I think we're doing all of us a disservice if we continue to push forward and trying too hard to do something,
Yeah.
right?
But we're
and
not quitting.
we're not quitting. No, believe me, I love doing these, but now it's time for me to help others do these. And in order for me to
Mhm.
help others be great at it, I need to kind of pull back. And it kind of goes with my content sequence and the way I've been thinking. It's like, all right, if I if I were to reach a perfect moment, I'd probably say, whittling this back or whittling all my shows. I'm talking holistically for myself. Uh, at some point, and it could be 6 months from now, it could be a month from now. I think the utopic place for me to find myself is one show a week. This way, it gives me a great opportunity to build up hype, build up awareness, and put all my efforts into the one show, and all my efforts post production and reusing the content and making the most of that. Uh, and in doing that, people don't feel like they're stretching themselves thin to be at multiple shows that I'm producing.
I've got a question for you, Americo.
Yep. Yep.
So at the high point, before you kind of reach this new approach, feeling like you needed to back down a little bit, how many shows a week were you doing? Because I know I saw a lot, and I kind of always had that thought, like, how does he do so many shows a week? So do you have an idea of how many weekly shows you were
So, yeah,
participating in?
there were moments where I had two scheduled shows, which was what I had committed to. And then I started getting questioned, hey, can you squeeze in another one? It's like, all right, let's squeeze in another one. And I found myself Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays
Mhm.
being on a show. And then people started to reach out. It's like, hey, would you like to be a guest on my show? It's like, oh, I'd love to be a guest on your show. You know, I've learned that, when people start reaching out and you start getting guest requests, that something's resonating. It's like, all right. And there was a short period where I was like, wow, this is my fourth time being live. And I think there was one day, and it'll never repeat itself. There was one day where I was live twice in the same day. It's like, all right, you I'm gonna burn myself out at this pace, and at that same pace, uh, I'm no longer running a business. I'm just entertaining myself
Mhm.
and running from event to event, raising awareness and having my message heard, but leaving zero time for creating value and building and scaling a business. So,
Yeah.
right, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for me to uh, do behind the scenes work to help people produce and create and get comfortable with their shows. And once they're comfortable, we kind of take the training wheels off and move on and help someone else out, right?
Mhm.
You hear my message, be seen, be heard, be remembered, but it's equally important to be seen, heard, and remembered for all the right reasons. You don't want to be the guy or the person or the business who's being remembered for, like, yeah, that looked sloppy, that felt sloppy, because you're racing and you're just like we talked about earlier, you feel like you're just spinning and nothing productive is coming out of it. So
Mhm.
uh, it's time for us to, well, and when I say us, I'm speaking for myself, and I know you and I had this conversation, and we felt that it was a good time for us to move the show from a bi-weekly stand to a monthly occurrence. You're still going to see a lot of us. We still got other projects on the go. You have your podcast that is
Mhm.
now starting to grow and build momentum, and I think it is the right thing for us to do, because this is part of our content strategy. And our content can still be consumed and repurposed. We can take what we're putting together once a month and stretch it out over multiple uh, types of content, formats of content, and different channels, and so forth. So we're still going to be driving value. We're still going to be bringing value. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't be too consumed. If you're listening in the audience, we're not going anywhere, folks. We're we're just changing our program schedule.
Yep, exactly.
All righty.
I'm loving some of the comments that are coming in. Elena says, growth mindset. And I think that this actually is part of a growth mindset. We're going to be growing in other areas. And that thing that you mentioned about being guests on other people's show, um, the podcast recording I did last week with Darby, she's a podcast producer, and that was part of her business growth strategy was actually being a guest. And there's some people that don't have a show of their own. They just use the guesting,
Yeah.
being on other people's shows as a way to grow their business.
Yeah. And podcasting is a real thing. And there's no shame in podcasting and in being a guest. Most guests appreciate and understand the work that goes behind putting a show together. And if that's part of your strategy, that's what I do with my shows. I'm sharing my stage with the guests that we bring. This isn't about you and I beating our chests and feeding our egos. This is about driving value. And if we use our last episode in terms of value, there's an abundance and a wealth of value and information, and that's what we want to drive. We want to be able to demonstrate that this these types of stages are here to be shared, and these types of stages are great ways to grow our business. And
Hmm.
Leah's joining us on YouTube. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. We got 2 YouTube viewers joining us today. It's always evolve. It's always an evolving process. Absolutely. And if you stay stagnant and you get stale and you no longer become relevant, then your business becomes a questionable asset, and you don't want to be that, or you don't want to find yourself in that position. So it's important to this particular slide. I'm going to bring up the graphic because I noticed it got cut off. But when you're starting to grow, it's important to stop the spinning, and you got to revisit and give yourself a reality check each time. And whether that's every 3 months, once a year, it's like whatever cadence you decide to adapt, just stick to it, because uh, you owe it to yourself to check in and check the tasks that you're doing and ask yourself, is what I'm doing meaningful? It is. But would it be just as meaningful if I did less of it? Absolutely. Right? It's about value and not. And how often do we hear quality versus quantity? You know,
Hmm.
right? We can come here on a daily basis and have the strategy session and make it part of our morning routines. But would that drive value? Probably not as well as it does today. Right?
Hmm. Yeah. I like these steps that are laid out here. So, is that
Let's
first one
yeah,
clarity?
let's pull it up here.
Okay, yeah. So, clarity, value creation, monetization, systems and scaling, and then sustainable growth, right? So, if you get stuck on that value creation step for too long and you never move up to those other tiers, I think that that is a place where I'm seeing a potential for burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole clarity piece, I think, is safe to say, is vital. And when you got your clarity figured out, you know what problems you're solving, you know who your target audience is, and you start building value and a value proposition around what you've clarified as being what it is that you want to do, serve, and you're going to build that like know and trust around that value. Monetization for some, it can feel like it's happening overnight. For others, it's a uh, longer stage. Uh, are there opportunities that come from these shows? Absolutely. In fact, that's part of my value proposition. I've recognized through the testing and through these shows that I'm now getting more events booked, more customers wanting to hear, hey, you know what? I think there's a place for what you're doing in my business. How can we build a similar visibility strategy or a live strategy to complement my content and some of my other marketing. Because the replays, we take a look at the volume of replays, and that's where the magic happens. These
Mhm.
are digital assets that continue working for us even after the live event, and people are starting to recognize that. Um, this whole AI movement, we all have an appreciation for it. Some of us have leaned into it and are, growing as fast and as rapidly with AI and leveraging AI. Where I think this opportunity, or what I'm doing to bring value, and is to help people understand, hey, let's, if you want to differentiate yourself,
Excuse me,
consider
sorry.
consider the fact that people are saying bring your authentic self. Bring, and what better way to bring your authentic self than through these events? And I think it's great. And of course, I'm going to say it's great because it's working for me, and I'm helping it work for others. Oh, you poor thing. You okay there?
Sorry.
No
I'm
worries.
good. I knew that this was gonna be a little bit of struggle with my voice and
It's okay.
excuse me.
We'll wrap things up shortly, just so that you can give your throat a rest and grab a lozenge. Uh, but you know what? I think the message is clear that in terms of creating a growth strategy, it's important to think about our personal growth just as much as the growth of the businesses that we're supporting. Right. So, how's that throat?
I'm hoping it's gonna hang on for just a little bit longer.
All right, then I'll be mindful and respectful of your struggles with your cough. Why don't we wrap things up, and I'll let you share your closing remarks, and then give your throat a rest, and then I'll share my closing remarks, and we'll wrap this session up a little earlier.
Alright, thanks for that, Americo. I hope everyone can understand, so I think that we've just kind of been pretty vulnerable with this and talking about a little bit of struggle that we're going on with our own businesses and kind of trying to find the right spot for us in content strategy and frequency and adding value and continuing to add value and all of that. So that being said, I'm glad we're not quitting. I think that moving to once a month is going to be the right kind of step. I saw someone ask in the question, when will be the new times for the show? It's probably going to stay on Tuesdays. I'm assuming Americo, kind of like we have been, but we're just going to have to choose one Tuesday a month to continue on with this. I do my Business Boom podcast recordings on Tuesday as well. So we'll try to make sure to alternate that so that they're not running into each other. But I appreciate everyone who's just been a part of this. So we've been doing it for 6 months. And I've really seen a lot of growth in people attending, commenting, and engaging. So thank you for all of that.
Yeah, that is a great way to summarize it. Yes, the growth and the support, and to see that the question, like, when's your next one? If we're moving to a monthly, when's your next one? That excites me just as much as and every other comment that's on here. So I appreciate the question. And what's Meryl writing? How courteous of you, Americo, and truly hope you feel much better. For
Thanks, Meryl.
Yeah, you know what? We got to look out after each other, and it, like I said, you're not going to see less of us. You're just going to see us uh, in better in a better position, better frequency, and just driving better value. I've learned something in these last 6 months. You've opened my eyes to email marketing. I'm now in my fourth email of this campaign.
I saw it in my inbox. I was like, "Yes."
All right, so
Actually, you're probably sending more email or marketing emails than me right at this moment, so I need to listen to my own advice.
well, it, it's different. There's no doubt, but there are small wins that come out of these. My list is growing marginally, um, and I had zero unsubscribes this this week, and the open rate is still steady at 31%. So I'm proud from moving as someone who just just wouldn't hear what anyone had to say about email marketing to appreciating that there is a place for it, and I'll get better with it, and probably ease off in terms of frequency. But right now, I'm just trying to find my vibe and my message, and let my community dictate. Hey, here's what's working. Here's what's not. And I love the fact that I have a heat map that tells me where people are clicking, so I know where to focus my energy. Uh, could be the website. It's only 4 emails, so there's not enough data collected. But when I do enough of these, I'll know it's like, all right, there's a lot of clicks on my website. So perhaps I should focus on cleaning up, polishing my website, because that's where most people are gravitating to after they read the newsletter. So
Yeah,
thank you
that's great
for
data to have. Uh-huh.
yeah, thanks for opening my eyes to that. I was I'm going to say a bad word here. I was an old fart. uh, and just wanted nothing to do with it because I kept deleting
Sorry.
emails that came into my inbox, and I had no appreciation for it, and now that appreciation has kind of slowly found a way into my day to day, and kind of goes part and parcel. It's like if I got to make room for email campaigns and a strategy around email, something's got to move and shift. So listen, it is great to be part on this growth trajectory, and helping one another be part of each other's growth strategies. I'm delighted to have played a part in building your studio. I wish you nothing but success with your podcast, and I know we'll reconvene. And once we sort out which Tuesday of the month we'll be, reaching out to our community and our followers and sharing, hey, when our next episode is going to be. So
Yep.
I'm going to give your throat a rest, give you back 15 minutes of your time, and I want to thank all of you who showed up, and all of you who will continue to come back. Before we shut down, let's read Al. Al just dropped in a message. Love your growth strategy graph. So much involved in each step. Would love to see what bullet points you may have under each that we can dig into. Appreciate your sessions. Very valuable. Thanks, Al. It's always great to read and see our listeners' sentiment. Um, this really is really like I'm touched by some of the great comments we're seeing here. All right, so let's wind it down and say goodbye for this episode. And until next time, yeah, I'm still here, Kendra's still here, and we look forward to your engagement, your support, and helping you out where we can.
Mhm.
Take care.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all.